Yeah, it is another episode of the Autumn Windbags. RJ Clifford here. Let's have some fun today. Some technical difficulties with the first video. Let me know if it's working now. Please chime in. Let me know if my mic's working because that sucked. So hopefully it is working because there's some very, very giant news going on in football. After weeks of negotiations in one of the largest trades in NFL history, the Seattle Seahawks and Denver Broncos have agreed to terms for a deal involving Super Bowl winning quarterback Russell Wilson, sources tell ESPN. Trade is pending a physical and Wilson's approval. Huge news in football, giant news in the AFC West, and for the Raiders. Big deal. Very, very big deal. Quick look at the trade package. Seattle gets quarterback Drew Lock, tight end Noah Fant, defensive line Shelby Harris, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a 5th-round pick. Denver gets Russell Wilson and a 4th-round pick. I always laugh when there's a monster trade and it's like, 2 Pro Bowlers, 2 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders, then you get this great quarterback and a 4th-round pick. It's like, really? That 4th-round pick is like what makes or breaks this whole deal? I don't know. I always laugh at it. So this is obviously huge. The Broncos, we've been saying for a long time, are just one decent quarterback away from being serious contenders. We've been saying it forever. I mean, their defense is great. Line is solid. Some offensive weapons. I wish they would have traded Jeudy instead of Noah Fant. Fant, tough to cover. Obviously, super tight, athletic and talented tight end. But Jeudy, despite having a case of the dropsies, was the guy that I really would have liked to see bounce out of Denver. Not going to happen. Jeudy's going to stay. So this is where we're at. A Hall of Fame quarterback going to Denver. Decent run game, solid defense, decent line. Now it's a big deal. So we saw the trade package. This is the situation in the AFC West right now. This is how good the quarterbacks are in the AFC West. You got Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowl MVP, 4-time Pro Bowler, NFL MVP. You've got Justin Herbert, Pro Bowler, NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. Russell Wilson, Super Bowl champ, 9-time Pro Bowler. And Derek Carr, a 3-time Pro Bowler. When you have Derek Carr, basically holds every record in passing for the Raiders. 3-time Pro Bowler. And he's clearly the 4th best quarterback in your division. You've got yourself a loaded division. If Aaron Rodgers would have been traded out of the NFC, just imagine the top 10 quarterbacks in the AFC, probably better than the 8th best quarterback in the AFC is probably better than the 3rd best quarterback in the NFC. If Rodgers would have traded the AFC. Nuts. It's not all doom and gloom, but there's a couple things I want to think about. We'll talk about the Raiders specifically, but here's a couple thoughts I have on just the trade in general. Pete Carroll is 70 years old. The head coach of the Seahawks. He's essentially the GM in a lot of ways too. He's 70 years old. He doesn't want to start over at 70 years old. He's had his AARP card for 5 years. Do you think he wants to just start all over? Just be like, hey, clean slate. Let's do it. No problem. It's no, he's 70. He wants to win now. He wants to do what's best for the team now. He wants to do what's best for himself now. So if he's willing to trade Russell Wilson, it tells me one of 2 things is the case. And honestly, it's probably a combination of the 2. But one of 2 things has to be true. Either 1, the relationship with Russell Wilson and the Seahawks was so toxic and so terrible that they were willing to trade a 9-time Pro Bowler. Russell Wilson had never had a losing season as a Seahawk until last season when he was injured for 3 games and everything fell apart. They're willing to move on from that because either A, the relationship is so toxic they had no choice, or they think Russell Wilson's washed up. They think Russell Wilson is no longer worth, he's only making $26 million or something next season. They think he's just done. They think he's done for, which we can kind of hope for, right? I mean, this is the part that you want to be optimistic about. And honestly, both things are probably true, and they're both good for the Raiders. If Russell Wilson was such a diva, such a pain in the ass in Seattle, he's more trouble than he's worth. That is great news for the Raiders, because hopefully whatever poison he was putting in the Seattle water, he'll put in the Denver water. Or Pete Carroll and the Seahawks think he's washed, that last year wasn't just an aberration, that he's on a downslide that they're not going to come back from. Honestly, and it's probably it's probably a combination of the two. But either way, they're both good for the Raiders. Like you don't, this is how you lose your job as a head coach or GM in the NFL, by losing a Pro Bowl quarterback who has still got years left. A Hall of Fame quarterback, a Super Bowl winning quarterback, a 9-time Pro Bowler. That's how you lose your job in the NFL, by losing guys like that. So if he's out, he had to have been the biggest pain in the ass, and he was going to bring the team down, or Seattle knows he's not worth it anymore. And Seattle knows he's just not good. I think there's a combination of those two. You know, this also tells me, like I said, Russell Wilson has had one losing season in the NFL. Just one. And he wanted out. And he wanted to be a pain in the ass. And he wanted to, get me out of here. Derek Carr's had 6 losing seasons out of 8 as an NFL quarterback, and he's been through hell. Some of the worst defenses in NFL history. Multiple coaching changes. Giant regime changes. This season alone, losing your head coach the way you lost him, losing your number 1 wide receiver, like all the things that Derek Carr's gone through, never complains. Not a peep out of Derek Carr. So say what you want. I know half of you guys love Derek Carr. Half of you guys hate Derek Carr. 100% of you have to agree that Derek Carr is a guy that you want in your locker room, because he's never a drama guy. He's never a me guy. You look at Aaron Rodgers. He tweeted like a half hour ago something about his contract, because it's like, oh man, they're not talking about me right now. Something's wrong. They're not talking about me. It's like the second hottest chick at the bar, where everyone's paying attention to the hottest chick. So she starts pushing her tits up, redoing her lip gloss, starts getting drunk and flirting with people. It's like, yeah, they're not looking at you. They're looking at somebody else. You'll never see Derek Carr do that. So I hope some of you guys appreciate that about Derek Carr, right? Jerry Jeudy had a pretty funny line. So obviously Jerry Jeudy, the wide receiver for the Broncos, when he found out that Aaron Rodgers was not going to the Broncos, he tweeted the sad face, right? And then an hour and a half later, when he finds out he's getting Russell Wilson instead, he says, "Oh, we lit," fire emoji. Isn't that great? Think about the swings of emotion if you're Jerry Jeudy. You're going from like, oh man, I thought I was going to get Aaron Rodgers. No, I'm going to have Drew Lock thrown to me. Oh wait, I got a Hall of Famer throwing to me now. This is awesome. Hefe, KC, Seattle got a bag. So this is what we've been saying on this show for a long time. The value of an NFL quarterback is through the roof, and it's only going up. Okay? That's a fact. The deal's coming out right now. Aaron Rodgers potentially getting $50 million. Justin Herbert's going to get 50 mil or more. Joe Burrow's going to get 50 mil or more. A lot of quarterbacks are going to get paid massive, right? And so to get a deal like that, the deal that they got, I still think that the Seahawks, if they felt like Russell Wilson was the guy still, and he was still 100%, they wouldn't have traded even this for it. 2 firsts, 2 second-round picks, a backup quarterback, Drew Luck, backup quarterback, Noah Fant, and Shelby Harris. If they still thought Russell Wilson was a top 5 quarterback, I don't think they make this trade. Even with all that stuff, that's just how valuable a quarterback is in the NFL. All those first-rounders, all those second-rounders, a young, promising tight end, solid defensive lineman, still not worth it. If they really thought he was a top 5 quarterback. That's what that's telling me. Seattle couldn't refuse the deal. Yeah, they could have. Yep, they could have. Carr never was a selfish guy. Absolutely not. Glad we have him as a Raider. All right. Broncos do it again. Super Bowl bound. Raiders fall to 4th. Okay. Couple things. One, remember, we swept the Broncos last season. That matters for something. Obviously, Russell Wilson changes the equation drastically. We went 1-1 against the Chargers after one of the most tumultuous seasons in NFL history. And we have a whole new regime and our coaches, whole new coaching staff, and a new GM. That could be amazing for us. That could be giant game changer for us, or maybe not that big of a deal. I don't know. We'll see. We don't know what's going on with McDaniels and Ziegler. Like, again, for the 100th time, yeah, you can flourish with the Patriots. Does that mean that you can bring that culture to the Raiders or to anywhere else? They haven't proven they can. They also haven't proven they can. So we'll see. I see AFC West having 3 plus 10 win teams. Well, they've got 6 games against themselves, right? Obviously the best division in football. I think the odds, I have the odds somewhere. Let me see. Okay, so here are the AFC West division odds according to FanDuel to win the AFC West. Chiefs, basically even money, plus 150. Broncos, plus 230, passed up the Chargers. Chargers at plus 350. Raiders coming in the rear at plus 1,000. I love that plus 1,000 for the Raiders for a couple of reasons. We saw in the AFC Championship game with the Chiefs how they don't really have a great plan C. They got a plan A and a plan B, right? They got their 2 big targets on offense. But if you take those away, if you just bracket those 2 guys and then spy Mahomes, like, they can't be stopped. And then you go to the Broncos. Do we know that this Russell Wilson thing for sure is going to pan out? I mean, all signs point towards it probably panning out. All signs point towards him obviously being an improvement over Drew Lock. But if Pete Carroll and the Seahawks are willing to get rid of him, there's got to be something there. Like I said, either he was so poisonous at the Seahawks that they're saying, all right, we'll get rid of a Hall of Fame quarterback, or they think he's sliding. And the Chargers we went 1-1 against in the most tumultuous season in Raiders history, in NFL history. So yeah, this sucks, but it's not all doom and gloom. Like, things have to still pan out for the Broncos for this to work. I'm also wondering, too, what's this mean for Russell Wilson's contract? Because if I look up his contract, he is only making like 24 mil this season on the back end of his deal. He had a 4 or 5 year deal. Are the Broncos going to have to pay him a ton, right? Is he going to want a brand new contract? Are they going to have to renegotiate a contract for Russell Wilson and then pay him more on top of the bag that they already gave him? Gave Seattle, excuse me. So this is the good and bad, right? So the Denver Broncos are pushing all their chips in, right? We're trading away our young stud tight end, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and we're going all in on Russell Wilson. And we may have to go over the cap to renegotiate his contract and pay him. And he may be washed, right? So when news of this came out, I was actually doing my Sirius XM radio show with Anthony Smith. He's a UFC fighter, and he's a Broncos fan. I know, I have to do a radio show with a Broncos fan. Trust me, it's hell on earth. And he was saying how, well, I don't like trading the future away for the now. I like homegrown guys. To which the first thing I said was, all right, you're clearly a spoiled sports fan if you're like going all in to win a world title and you didn't do it exactly the right way, or you sacrificed the future to win now. It's like, you've won too many titles then. Like, stop being so spoiled. Like, do whatever you can to win now because titles are fleeting. But on the flip side, with the Broncos pushing all their chips in the middle, this could be a swing and a miss. Like, the cost of admission. Now, I'm not saying that they're dumb for doing it. I think they made the right move. I think with how big it is to have to go from Drew Lock to Russell Wilson, especially with the small window of talent that they have right now before like all their contracts on defense and stuff have to come up. It's the right move. It's clearly the right move, big move, and they put themselves in a great position to be giant contenders next season. But if it fails, this sets them back for seasons. If this move doesn't work, if it doesn't pan out, the Broncos are going to take years to recover from this failure. Even if it does work, even if it completely works, they win the Super Bowl next year, Russell Wilson plays great. Wilson's only got a couple more years of prime left. And they still lost those 2 first-rounders, the 2 second-rounders, all that stuff. So obviously it was a giant price to pay for this deal that they did. And if it doesn't pan out, then they've done it all for nothing. And they're back to being the bottom feeders of the AFC West. So that's what we're hoping for. Right? Another thing that I saw that I laughed at. This is what Max Crosby tweeted out, like an hour ago. Right? Look at him. Licking his chops. Licking his chops. Let me get my hands on Russell Wilson. Let me get my big old paws on Russ. I'm ready to eat. Let the big dog eat. Look at that. Look how excited he is. He can't wait to hunt him down. He can't wait to be sprinting, chasing down Russell Wilson, dragging him down, blowing a kiss to Ciara in the stands. That's a man who's excited that he gets to tackle Russell Wilson twice a season. And he should be. Because Russell Wilson gets sacked a lot. And a lot of people want to blame it completely on the offensive line. But the way that he plays, he's super sackable. Just because he scrambles a lot and tries to make big plays, and he does. But when it fails, he gets a sack. He gave up 33 sacks last season in only 14 games. He gave up 47 sacks in 16 games before that and 48 sacks in 16 games before that. He gets sacked a lot. And yeah, I know the offensive line isn't good in Seattle, but it's more than that. Quarterback sack stats aren't 100% line. It's also on the quarterback. Remember, was it 2 seasons ago when it was very serious, in the media that John Gruden might want to trade for Russell Wilson? You know how John Gruden is just like a drill sergeant with his quarterbacks? You do A, you do B, you do C. You don't question. You do exactly what I say in this exact regimented, element. Like you do it exactly like this. He would have ripped Russell Wilson's head off the way Russell Wilson plays quarterback. He's hero ball every play, running around, trying to make plays, and oftentimes it works, right? Oftentimes it works. That's why he's a Pro Bowler. But when it doesn't, you get sacked all the time. John Gruden would have been furious at Russell Wilson if that trade happened. Mo Dizzle, thanks for chiming in. Are the Broncos that much better than Seattle? 7-10. Yeah. Yeah, they are. Now, Seattle's got obviously some premium receiver weapons, right? I mean, DK Metcalf can't be happy right now. Now that Drew Lock's throwing to him. But I think overall the Broncos are pretty stable. It's a pretty stable roster. Pretty good running backs, decent line, better than Seattle, although not great. A defense is pretty solid. I mean, they were the prototypical team that was quality, but didn't have a quarterback. They're like the Colts light, basically. Like the Colts, 7 Pro Bowlers. The Colts had 7 Pro Bowlers last season. Couldn't make it to the postseason. Why? Because they had Carson Wentz under center. Now they got Russell Wilson. Yes, the Broncos have way better defense and offense. Yep, it's true. The only thing Broncos lack now is their coaching staff and an owner. Like, think about it. For them, so Russell Wilson had a no trade clause in his contract, right? Any trade that happens, he has to approve. So that means he gets to pick where he goes in a trade, right? He had to have been sold on this trade. You didn't like these are all the people that have to be sold on this. You have to sell multiple people in Seattle, Pete Carroll, some front office people. The Broncos obviously have to be sold on it, right? Their staff has to be sold on it. Their coach, their GM, their team has to be sold on it. And Russell Wilson has to be sold on it because of the no trade clause. So he has to buy and believe whatever the Broncos were selling. There had to have been a pitch meeting. Someone at the Broncos had to give Russell Wilson a call and say, hey, we want you to come to Denver, and here's our verbal PowerPoint presentation on why we think that's a good idea for you. And he was sold on it. Like Russell Wilson has to believe that this is a better place for him. Or, like I've been saying, the relationship in Seattle between Russell and Pete Carroll and the rest of the staff was so terrible that he just wanted out anywhere. But luckily he got to a good place. Now, the other part is Russell Wilson is thinking like, all right, the NFC West, like he was one of the toughest divisions in football, right? He had a Super Bowl champ, multiple teams in the playoffs out of the NFC. And now you're going from what was the toughest division in football, and now him coming to the AFC West, it's the new toughest division in football. So he's literally going from the toughest division in football to the toughest division in football because he's now in it. It's crazy. The Broncos don't even have an owner, really. Like, that's the other funny part. Is like, if I'm a quarterback and I'm trying to pick where I'm going to go, owner is part of the conversation, right? Like, you look at how good's the line, how good's the coach, what's the future look like, how many draft picks do they have, do they have enough cap space for me? There's a lot of things you look into, but one of the top 10 things I look into is the owner. Because coaches change, GMs change, players change, cities change. The things that change the least is the owner. Ownership is one of the things that change the least. And there's technically not an owner in Denver. All right, sorry about that, Raiders, Zach. The Broncos front office just did what they needed to. No longer are we thinking if they just figured their quarterback situation out, they'd be a problem. No, because they have figured it out. They've seriously figured it out. So what does this mean for how the Raiders do business going forward? There's this, I can understand the thought process to think, all right, since the AFC West just got even more steep and more loaded, maybe the Raiders do a little bit more of a reset. Maybe the Raiders do a little bit more, all right, let's sell some of what we got and build to the future to let this like brutal wave go by us. I can understand some people thinking that. I get it, right? Like, hey, maybe we thought we had something going here. Maybe it's time for a reset because the division got so tough. I understand the initial thought, but that needs to go away immediately. This is what sucks. The AFC West isn't going anywhere talent-wise. Patrick Mahomes signed a 10-year deal. Still in his early 20s. Justin Herbert just finished his second season. He's not going anywhere. This is at worst, the second best Raiders team in 20 years. Seriously. They've only been in the playoffs once since I was a teenager. Second best Raiders team in the last 20 years. And they've got basically all parts of it still involved, right? They've got to figure out some of those one-year contracts, but you've got a franchise quarterback, you've got Hunter Renfrow, you got Darren Waller, you got Max Crosby, you got some key parts of your offensive line that are young and locked up. Awesome linebacker core, which when was the last time you were able to say the Raiders had a great linebacking core? I mean, it's been forever, right? Great young free safety, great young slot corner. I mean, this is not the time to sell out for the future. This is a go now mode. If the Raiders need to be a go now team, because we've got a lot of great things going for us. And it's not like the AFC West is all these like aging quarterbacks. We just have to wait them out for them to die and then we can take over. Their quarterbacks are younger than ours. Like, this isn't a time to like pull back. It's now time for the Raiders to make a big move and a win now move. Whether that's get go get an Allen Robinson or Devontae Adams thing, which with the Aaron Rodgers news, I think Devontae Adams is probably going to get franchise tagged in Green Bay. I don't know if that news is broke right now. That's probably what it was. Yeah, either big wide receiver acquisition, maybe a super stud corner of some kind, right? Like Raiders are in win now too. But the difference is the Raiders are better positioned to extend this squad than anybody else, right? All those contracts in Kansas City are going to eat up everything else, right? All the stuff that Denver just gave Seattle, that's going to cost them in the upcoming seasons. The Raiders have good squad of young players coming off of one of their best draft classes in years. Other than Alex Leatherwood, they hit on basically everything else. All their draft picks, decent cap space. The AFC West, obviously the Raiders, I think rightfully so, should be the 4th seed, right? But they're in a better position to maintain quality football better than the other 3 teams. Like we said, Denver's going all in. If it doesn't work, they're going to flounder for seasons. Kansas City, all those contracts, all those giant superstars that cost a ton of money, it's going to cost them down the road. And honestly, I'm not sold on with the Chargers coach. I mean, he's supposed to be some defensive genius. He had the worst defense in years. And the Raiders went 1-1 against him, even though it was a messed up season. So yeah, it looks doom and gloomy, 2022. The Raiders are rightfully the biggest underdogs in the AFC West, plus 1,000. Rightfully so. Fair. But they got a lot going for them. And their future looks really, really bright. We can't hit the reset button with the talent we have on our roster. No. Definitely can't. I honestly think we can compete against the Broncos and to strengthen the O-line, fill in the needs and win games. Yeah, I mean, we swept the Broncos last season. It's still the same team. Just, now you've got the worst quarterback in the division to one of the better quarterbacks and a Hall of Fame quarterback. Carr is not the 4th quarterback in the division. He's 3rd. Herbert is 4th as of now, but his future looks extremely bright. That's debatable. Justin Herbert's playing pretty well. The big wild card, though, and we're talking about like stability, right? So there's a lot of stability in Kansas City, right? Andy Reid's not going anywhere. Quarterback's not going anywhere. Ownership's not going anywhere. A lot of stability there. It's going to be expensive and it's going to be hard to keep. And who knows how long Andy Reid wants to keep doing this. But a lot of stability there. Broncos, there's no owner. And they just sold the future for the now. And Chargers, I don't believe in the coach. So the future's really bright for Las Vegas. How many years do you want to extend Carr? So there's 2 schools of thought on this. He's getting it. I don't think this changes anything as far as what happens with Derek Carr. I don't think Mark Davis and Ziegler is going to be like, all right, well, they got Russell Wilson. Let's move on from Carr. It's still a maybe. I doubt it. Like every single preseason, every single off season, quarterback trades are like fantasy quarterback trades dominate the preseason. It's big, sexy trades, right? This isn't the NBA. There's a reason why this Russell Wilson trade is so freaking massive because they rarely happen. It rarely happens that a Hall of Fame, Super Bowl winning, 9-time Pro Bowl winning quarterback gets traded because they're just so valuable. No coach and GM and owner wants to lose them. Like that's why it's so massive. This isn't basketball where giant trades happen, 3 of them every offseason. So the idea that like the Raiders would trade Carr for something, it's possible, but it's so rare. And I don't think Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler chose now to leave and chose the Raiders to go to as their destination just to start over. I mean, they're already kind of hitting the reset button by changing the entire coaching staff. That's already a pretty big reset in and of itself. Do they want to also like reset with a new quarterback? They traded because they wanted to play with Carr or coach Carr. Like that's part of the appeal. You've got a franchise quarterback. So how many years do you want to extend Carr? Well, there's two schools of thought. I think he stays. And it's either a short-term deal, like a 2-year deal, or like a 4 or 5 year deal. The short-term deal, like I've said multiple times, it's going to cost you later because, one, if you're going to do less guaranteed money in a shorter deal, quarterbacks want more money, which makes sense, right? I'm willing to take less money per season if it's a 5-year deal because overall I'm still making that $125 million guaranteed or whatever number. So if I'm going to do a 2-year deal, I'm going to want 40, 45 mil per season to compensate for how short the contract is. What I hope happens is I'm down with a 2-year deal if it's an extension on the current deal. So Derek Carr is set to make less than $20 million next season. It's non-guaranteed money, 5th year of his contract. And I'm going to bring this up to Soto when we do our show on Wednesday. How about we just extend that deal with the 2-year deal? $90 million, like a $80 million 2-year deal. So you go next season, Carr finishes his contract, and then he automatically goes in to his 2-year deal. So technically, it's a 3-year, $100 million deal. $20 million this season that's already on there, and then 40 and 40. So you add that all together, 40 plus 40 plus 20 equals 100. Divide that by 3, $33 million each year. Average, right? But it's all guaranteed, right? So they guarantee him $100 million for the 3 years. I think Carr can go for it, and I think that would keep just about everybody happy. So we got Derek Carr for 3 more years, averaging $33 million each, and we got next season where it's not a big hit to the cap, right? Only 19-something million. And we keep Derek Carr for 3 seasons and see if he can still keep being the guy for us. Again, I think I keep saying it, I'm sticking to it. The longer you go with your quarterbacks, the better. Because as we just saw, the value of quarterbacks is huge, right? If Russell Wilson is worth 2 firsts, 2 second, a stud tight end, and a really good defensive lineman, Derek Carr's got to be worth half that? 2/3 of 60% of that? Right? Russell Wilson isn't twice as valuable as Derek Carr. He's better, absolutely. He's not twice as valuable on the open market as Derek Carr. And also, Russell Wilson had no trade clause, which certainly brought down his value. Because you can only negotiate with teams that Russell Wilson would approve. And I think the Broncos knew that. Like the Broncos knew, like Russell, like this, they're a destination for quarterbacks. Like a quarterback that wants out of their deal or out of their town, Broncos are where you want to go. It's a team that needs a quarterback and everything else is pretty decent or pretty good. Someone had this is a good point. Koji with a great point. Let's see what that defense looks like without Fangio. Really good point. Really good point. Vic Fangio was the most sought after defensive coach in football. Still is. Without Vic, is it going to be as good? I don't know. Kyler Murray trade for DC. I think makes some sense there. Murray obviously wants out, although, the drama of Kyler Murray and him deleting all the social media posts that have him with the Cardinals, that's now back, right? He's obviously awesome. I really wonder how good he is long-term, though. The way he fell apart late this season, kind of a drama guy. Definitely a big change from Derek Carr, that's for sure. That's a guy I'd be worried about because he's going to want a 5-year, $200 million something deal. He's made it abundantly clear that that's what he wants. I don't know if I'm willing to. I would love to have Kyler Murray. I don't know if I'm willing to do that with Kyler Murray. We'll see. Niners used 3 first-round picks on Trey Lance. Seems to me the Donkey's got a steal for a surefire Hall of Famer still in his prime. So, yes, but it's not quite that black and white, right, Cody? or code 17. Rookie quarterbacks on rookie deals are platinum. They are gold. Because you can get, as we're seeing with Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow, Pro Bowl playoff quarterbacks for pennies, for a couple mil a year, because they're on that rookie quarterback deal. So you're obviously losing that with Russell Wilson because you're getting a better quarterback, but you got to pay him 40, 45. You got to pay him what he's worth, right? You got to pay him the market value. You don't have this rule in the NFL that's artificially dragging his costs down, right? So that's why rookie quarterbacks are valuable there. But you're right. Like, the Broncos were in the driver's seat for this trade because Seattle could only move Russell Wilson to a few places. Like, where else could he possibly go? Like, Niners maybe, but they obviously wouldn't want to keep him in the NFC West. Tampa Bay maybe, Pittsburgh maybe. Like, there's a couple other places where maybe it would make sense for Russell Wilson to go, but Denver was his primary choice. Denver knew that. So they didn't have to pay, like, as much as Denver paid for Russell Wilson, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a tight end defensive lineman. He would have went for a lot more if all 31 other teams got to bid for him. A lot more. That's also what makes me think that Seattle knew that Russell Wilson's kind of like trailing off, right? Because they let him go for not what a surefire Hall of Fame quarterback should go for. Stingy Beast, with all that ammunition that Seattle have now, I reckon they will make a play at Watson and Carr. They're going to make a play for somebody, right? Like I said, Pete Carroll's 70 years old. He doesn't want to restart anything. You hear about it all the time of, like, you know, some parents that are like in their 40s have another kid. They're like, oh man, starting all over with a new baby. Totally different than having a kid in your 20s, right? It's a pain. It's a headache. Does Pete Carroll want that headache as like a geriatric 70-year-old, right? Like, they're turning around and they're going to make a move soon. Now, whether it's Watson or Carr or whoever, I don't know. But I got to imagine if they, and this also tells me this, if Seattle doesn't make a move this offseason for somebody, then they didn't have a plan, and this came at them faster than they expected. And that tells me that Russell Wilson was that big of a pain in the ass, that he was that big of a poison in that locker room. If they're just like, get rid of him with no plan to replace him. I mean, Drew Lock, he's a standby quarterback. He wasn't brought, he's getting traded for, but as a backup quarterback. If he starts for them next season, then they obviously got caught with their pants down. There's no way Pete Carroll's like, yeah, let me just get like a bridge quarterback for 2 seasons, use all these draft picks to like build for the next couple seasons. I plan on being better in, year 4, 4 seasons from now. Like, he can't possibly be thinking that unless Russell Wilson just had to go. He just had to go because he was that big of a problem. 2-year deal sounds good, but if that happens, then what happens with Waller, Renfro, and Crosby? Waller, Renfro, and Crosby aren't going anywhere. Not happening. The Raiders do a really good job, and sometimes to their detriment, right? Because you look at the Rams, you look at the Saints, you look at the Bucks, you look at the teams who spend a ton of money and just kind of kick the can. People say, like, oh, the cap isn't real. Because look, these teams sign all these players. Like, no, the cap's real. You just push it back. I mean, look at the American government spending. Like trillions of dollars in national debt. Like, it's not that debt isn't real. It's very real. We're paying interest on it every day. Your and my tax dollars are paying interest on that national debt every day with tax money. It's real. Just because we haven't paid it all off, that doesn't mean it's not real. Same thing with these salary caps. Just because these teams can overspend and push, rearrange contracts and change things to make it work now, that doesn't mean that debt doesn't have to be paid down the road, right? So the Raiders have done a really good job of not forfeiting the future for the now. a really good job at that. We always stay decent cap position. We don't give away our draft picks. We do a really good job of doing that. Now, part of it is maybe the Raiders should make bigger moves, right? Maybe the Raiders should try to do what the Rams did and what the Saints attempted to do and what the Broncos are doing now. Maybe those are gambles that should be done. It's not historically how the Raiders have worked. And Ziegler and McDaniels, again, if they're exact replicas of how the Patriots work, Patriots just generally don't do that, right? Patriots aren't huge at, signing massive free agent deals and trading a bunch of picks for big guys. Like, it's generally not the Patriot way. So we'll see what Ziegler and McDaniels do this season when it comes to just like going crazy. So 2-year deal, well, one, you can spread it all out, right? Because if you're doing the 2-year deal that I thought of, right, you let Carr play on the 5th year of his deal this season and then guarantee the next 2 years, because kind of basically just guarantee everything. You can spread that cap space around. So that's the key, is like you have, again, I'm not a capologist, but I do have a calculator. So what you can do is you can be like, all right, Derek Carr, you're only $20 million cap hit next season. Then we'll make Crosby a $40 million cap hit this season. And then we'll switch them 2 seasons from now where Crosby's cap hit is 30 and Carr's is 30. And so you can do that, if that makes sense. You can move all that around. It also depends on what we do with a bunch of players on our roster that we don't want, right? Like Corey Littleton, we can between Corey Littleton, Carl Nassib, and Gukowski, we make those post June 1st cuts, and that's $20 million. Now that's $20 million that we save this season against the cap, but then we're going to have to use it later on against the cap. So that's my point, is as long as we have enough players, and this gets really boring doing the math, really great TV, RJ, good job. But the way, if you can spread out all those guys and you have enough time and enough moving parts, like you can get creative and make it happen without selling the future. So 2-year deal, we're going to extend Waller, we're going to extend Renfro, we're going to extend Crosby. We can all do it. Yannick would have to be done after this year due to cap. I don't think so. I think we keep Yannick. William Merchant, the defense was not that good against us with Fangio, and it just got worse with no early picks for 2 years. Very true. No Fangio, no reloading in the, serious reloading in the draft. All of your cap going towards a new quarterback. They're going to have to pay Noah Fant here in a couple seasons. Yeah. Send Cal Grizzly Raider. Good thug face. Maybe Pete Carroll thinks they have a shot at a guy like Deshaun Watson or Kyler Murray. I mean, I'm assuming they're thinking they have a shot at somebody. Like I said, either Russell Wilson was if they don't go after somebody, or if they don't land anybody, then that definitely tells me that Russell Wilson was so bad they just had to let him bounce. Just get out of here. If we find out in the next week that the Seahawks have signed somebody, then I think, okay, maybe Russell Wilson is still got something going because they got rid of him, but they had a backup plan. It all kind of depends what the Seahawks do moving forward. If the Seahawks make a move quick, then that tells me, okay, this was all part of the plan. They had a whole plan for this. They didn't have to rush anything. Russell Wilson didn't have a gun to their head. They had a plan. $1.5 billion in insurance payments every day. Yeah, see? You want some depressing some depressing news about money? That's what we pay in interest every day. The way they get around the cap is by spending all the money up front in bonus and small salary. Yeah. Right? You front load it or back load it depending on where you're at. Right? If you're and the Raiders, because they're in such a good position where they don't owe a ton, they have cap space, they can do both. Right? They can say, okay, we're going to take the cap hit for Carr in season 2 and 3 and take the cap hit for Crosby in season 1 or whatever, right? Or reverse it or however you want to do it, right? That's the flexibility that you have. If you've got, you're going to take these massive cap hits 2 or 3 seasons down the road because that's how you've restructured contracts, then you can make your moves now, but you have to pay now. Or if you're in a terrible cap situation now, then you have to either restructure or you can pay guys down the road, right? That's when Derek Carr was saying, when they were redoing all their contracts, Derek Carr, Khalil Mack, and Gabe Jackson. He said, we made our contracts, me and Gabe Jackson, to be able to keep Khalil Mack. Now, it's not him taking less money. That's him, so my cap hits are here and here. I'm taking this bonus and I'm getting paid this time, further down the line. Like, that's what that meant. Not less money. Players don't take less money to play, right? Stop. Everyone thinks that your quarterback is going to do that. Quarterbacks don't do that. And don't give me the Tom Brady line either. Quarterbacks don't do that. But they will, as long as they're getting their guaranteed money, they're generally fine with, okay, it helps the team if I get a roster bonus and less down the road, or I get more down the road and less roster bonus. Like, that's the team-friendly deals that quarterbacks do. Moving money around as opposed to taking less money. Adam's tagged yet. I haven't been on. He could be tagged any second, right? I haven't been on Twitter, obviously, for the last 45 minutes because I've been doing this show. But with Aaron Rodgers' deal, it was reported that it's done. And then Aaron Rodgers reported that it's not done, but he's definitely staying. But the contract isn't signed. Whatever we make of that, that's another story. Devontae Adams is almost surely going to get tagged, right? Abram and Jacobs trade is very likely now, so we can do what the Rams did. Josh Jacobs. He's owed a lot coming up. He's going to be owed $8 million for his fifth-year option. Way too much for all but 2 or 3 running backs. The way that we're able to get just as good running back play from Josh Jacobs' backups the last 2 seasons tells me you don't pay that much. Luckily, those hens don't come back to roost until after next season. So if it works, then, like, let's say best case scenario, and I hope that McDaniels and Ziegler aren't like wowed and mystified by Jacobs, but hopefully this is what happens. Josh Jacobs plays great the first 4 games of the season, ups his trade value, and we trade him before we have to pay his 5th-year option. And then we go with Jalen Richard and Kenyon Drake and backups, right? That's what I hope happens. And I love Josh Jacobs. He's played great for us. He's got a Raider tattoo. Love him. I'm not paying him $8 million for a guy that can't get through a season without getting hurt, a guy that doesn't get involved in the passing game. It's not going to happen. Jonathan Abram is a tough one because I think he was leading our team in tackles before he got hurt. He was at least second in tackles on the team. First or second. Yeah. Him and Denzel Perryman were like 1A, 1B until Abram got hurt. So we're going to need someone to replace those tackles, right? Now, in the new defensive scheme, can he flourish? Because it's generally a too high system. But if they're really, really great, right? Like if this coaching staff that's coming over, they pride themselves in getting really, really good players, not scheme-dependent players. Gus Bradley needed scheme-dependent guys. That's why he got his guys, and they flourished. Right? Casey Hayward, Denzel Perryman, all his defensive tackles. Like, he got his guys that work in his system, and they played well. This whole new coaching staff, their claim to fame is just be a good player, and we'll get the best out of you. Can they do that with Jonathan Abram? That's my question, because he clearly has huge upside in big parts of his game and clearly has huge downside in other parts of his game. He gets beat deep all the time, but he's a beast in the box. So can this coaching staff do something to Jonathan Abram? Because he improved a lot between 2 seasons ago and last season. Remember, 2 seasons ago, he would just bail on his coverage. He would just disappear. At least this season, he was in position. He just didn't make the play, right? How many times did we see him in the hip pocket of a receiver or a running back or a tight end, and he just got beat on the jump ball? Or how many plays do we see of him just destroying guys in tackles, like destroying guys in the box? He's a great tackler, or he's become a really, really good tackler for us. He's just like a force in the box. Can this defensive scheme work around that? Adams was tagged. There we go. Devontae Adams tagged. He's off the board for the Raiders. So now who's the best free agent wide receiver? Probably Allen Robinson. But this is the thing. And this is what happened last season. This draft is so awesome for wide receivers. It's so deep. And it's not like Ruggs' season where there were like 3 or 4 insanely good guys that were game changers. It's more that you can get a starting rookie wide receiver in like round 3. It's just so deep right now. And so that's why I think this wide receiver free agency with all these receivers that are free agents, we should be able to get somebody for cheap because there's just so many options, right? What is it? Just regular supply and demand. If you want a wide receiver, if you're a team that needs a wide receiver like the Raiders, this is a great time to need a wide receiver. You never want to be needing a wide receiver, but if you have to be short a number 1 X, this is the time to do it. You get a ton of guys in free agency, you got a ton of guys in the draft, so the price is low, and you've got your pick. Yep. So it was Rappaport. Adams has been tagged. Kind of saw that coming. Any rumors on who the Raiders might tag? No. Everyone we want long-term. The only one I can think of is maybe, like I said, everything with Jonathan Abram that I talked about, if he flourishes, but they're still not sure, he could potentially be a tag candidate. Not this season, though. I don't think this season. Teams did not load the box when Jacobs was on the sideline. Not fair to say the other back performed as well. Fixed O-line is a fix for Jacobs. I like to see the data behind that. The teams did not load the box when Jacobs was on the sideline. He ran into some heavy boxes for sure. But what does that say though? Like, so now we're going to have not loaded boxes and we can run into lighter boxes now because we have a running back that's less of a threat in the eyes of the defense. Again, like, it's just, I'm not trying to be one of these like running backs have no value in the NFL. Like, some are better than others, clearly. But we got production out of a running back for $850,000 last season. When Jacobs was out, we got production on undrafted running backs. Now, is Josh Jacobs better? Sure. Is he 8 times better? $7 million better? No. It's just all about value. Like, if I can get a guy who's 70% as good as Josh Jacobs for 1/8 the price, you do it. You do it. And also, we're already spending millions of dollars at running back. Kenyon Drake, like, we're spending so much on running back. Captain Raider Klaus. What's good, RJ? Great UFC weekend. What a fucking division we are in now. Yeah. Yes, yes, and yes. I don't know if I like my safety getting that many tackles, though. Well, yeah, it's not optimal, right? Optimally, it's our defensive tackles and linebackers doing it. But someone does. And also, it's not, like I said, Jonathan Abram isn't like a pure, like, free safety type of thing, right? Like, you're right. Normally, when your free safety is getting the most tackles, that's bad. Like, all these, it's either, passes downfield or it's running backs getting to the second and third level. Not the case. I mean, Jonathan Abram was getting tackles at the line of scrimmage. Like, he was getting a lot of good quality tackles. Can you see the Seahawks calling the Raiders? I can. Like, they are going to go with Drew Lock as their quarterback. LOL. Like I said, if they're going with Drew Lock as their quarterback, that means they caught with their pants down and they have no idea what to do. Only One Nation headquarters. Harold Landry will not get tagged and Kyle Van Noy got released. Worth looking into both of these guys. Well, like I said, we're finally good at linebacker, right? Like, when was the last time that we were doing pretty well at linebacker? Been a long time. I don't think we tag anyone. Maybe Casey Hayward. I think poor play calling hindered Jacobs as well. Yeah, I agree. Predictable play calling was a big part of the problem for the Raiders, right? Very predictable play calling. And I don't feel like we used Jacobs. I wish we would have ran more in the red zone. He's a good red zone running back, right? Like, he's not going to be a guy that breaks giant runs for you. What was his longest run this season? 28 yards? With all those carries, that's your longest run was 28 yards. Not great. But if you want to make 2.5 guys miss and guarantee yourself 5 yards That's Jacob's bread and butter. That's what he does best, right? Hard running between the tackles or just off tackle and giving you a couple yards that you need. Well, quick story time before I let you guys go. I met Mark Davis this weekend. Yeah, it's true. As some of you know, I work for the UFC, and UFC 272 was in Las Vegas, and the stars were out. Like, there were a lot of celebrities. Jared Leto was there. Zach Brown, the country singer, was there. Shania Twain was there. Obviously, Max Crosby was there. I got to shake his hand again. Daniel Carlson was there randomly. It was funny. They had Max Crosby. They had like a celebrity section that sits right behind Dana White. Max Crosby was in the very front row. Like, literally, like, it's him, and then he sees the back of Dana White's bald head and then the octagon. Daniel Carlson was 3 rows behind Max Crosby. It's like, all right, it's a kicker, right? Yeah, you got Mr. Vegas and Max Crosby and the kicker behind him. No big deal. Anyway, I don't have a great story about Mark Davis, but I was on the floor. Literally, the octagon's right here, and I'm walking this way. Mark Davis is walking this way because he's sitting on the floor. It's called Billionaires Row. He was sitting next to Donald Cowboy Cerrone. And he's walking by, and he's wearing his that white Raiders jacket that he wore to the owner meetings, right? He was sitting there with a backpack and that white jacket, looking like a little kid on his first day at school. That's what he was wearing, the exact same jacket. I just kind of walked by, and I saw him, and I'm wearing literally this Raiders hat, right? I'm wearing all black because I'm working, but I sneak in the black on black Raiders hat. And I just kind of go, because I'm at work, so I can't like try to get a picture or like, he's got stuff to do. He's watching fights. He doesn't want to deal with stuff, but I just kind of walked by, I just kind of give him a Raiders, and just kind of had that big, like, boy, he looked at me and just kind of gave me this big bright-eyed boyish grin, right? Mark Davis is, when it comes to NFL ownership, one of the more relatable owners in football. Like, you look at the other owners in football, and it's like, dress shirt, got the little cufflinks, $2,000 suit, like, hey, I got multiple security around me. Mark Davis was literally sitting at a UFC, no security, next to Donald Cowboy Cerrone, and just kind of walking around in a Raiders starter jacket. Like, again, billionaires aren't very relatable. Like, he's building this multi-million-dollar home in Vegas and all this kind of stuff. They're generally not relatable. But when it comes to NFL owners, Mark Davis is most. How many NFL owners would I be able to just kind of like walk by on the floor of a UFC event at T-Mobile Arena? Not many. They're up in their boxes. They've got security. Most of them wouldn't even go to a UFC. So that's just a story I wanted to share with you guys. Anything more before we get out of here? Jacobs and Drake trade or let go? I mean, is there anyone going to trade Kenyon Drake with that contract? Does anyone want him? I don't know. How do you feel if we trade for both DK Metcalf and Brandon Cooks? Awesome. What are we giving up for him? So you're okay with a subpar, really bad safety for $7 million, but won't pay Jacobs $8 million, even though he has almost 3,000 yards with a subpar offensive line. Like I said, if Jonathan Abram is the Jonathan Abram from his second year, no. But what I want to see is players going this way. He improved drastically between years 2 and 3. If he makes the same amount of improvement between years 3 and 4, then maybe we have that $7 million conversation. If the improvements continue. No, not the old Jonathan Abram, but the Jonathan Abram that keeps going like this improvement-wise, then maybe we do have that conversation. And he has to stay healthy. If he gets hurt again next season, not a chance. You're out of there. They might want Carr as a quarterback, maybe, possibly, and the Raiders let go of Carr to an NFC team. 4th best quarterback in the division, 4th best offense in the division. Big problem. Steve the Cockfighter won. Yeah. No kid. Again, we'll have to wait and see if that Chargers offense is still going to be good, right? They can't just be all Justin Herbert. And does the Russell Wilson experiment work? Like, again, it's the offense might be 4th, but it's crazy to think this, but the defenses in the AFC West may not be anything anywhere. Like we talked about earlier in the show. Broncos without Fangio, is that defense still good? The Chargers, despite having a coach that's supposed to be this defensive guru, got worse. Their defense got worse last season. Right? All right. That's it for us. Me. So used to having Soto here. We'll talk a lot more about all this on Wednesday's show on the podcast. So we've been bouncing back and forth. Do we put the entire shows on YouTube or do we chop them up? And we started off doing all the shows on YouTube, and then we switched to chopping them up and putting them on YouTube. Now we're doing both. Now we're going to do all of it. It's more work for me because I do all the editing and the producing, but I think that's the best way to get you guys what you want when you want it. Because sometimes you just want an 8-minute video on Derek Carr's potential contract. Sometimes you want to sit down for an hour and 20 minutes and listen to Soto and I yell at each other and having Soto flip out. It all kind of, depends on what you guys want. So we'll do the extra work. We'll give you guys different versions of it, and hope you guys enjoy it. I'll just leave you guys with my favorite clip of Juan Soto before we get out of here.
Oh, I'm not saying anything. Derek Carr can come and I will suck his dick.
Later, guys.